Howdy, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Uh, this is going to be an interesting one. I've mentioned it several times in the past. I've talked about this author numerous times, especially in my Radium series. I've mentioned Apergy, um, as well as some of the odd historical overlays, coincidences, and flat out lies when it comes to the history of radium, ancient technology. Um, so on and so forth. Language, schooling, earth shape, on and on, ad infinitum. And after going through the book, we'll be talking about a few more times, especially recently. I was putting together an episode for my Radium series and decided that I should give this a little more background, and that's what I'm going to do. Uh, I don't think I'm going to include this in the Radium series. Make it its own little thing. However, it has a lot of really important overlays with that, and in the next episode, we'll get into some of that too. But yeah, as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you all very much. Um, as the thumbnail states, to prove we live inside the Earth, an expedition of Koreshan scientists now being fitted up at Naples, Florida, to sail around the inside of the globe. Powerful proofs and big backing to establish John Jacob Astor's theory of the sun, moon, and stars. Women leaders of Denver, Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia. Now, my good buddy Dr. Longo's done a video on Koreshan, the Koreshan Unity group. I'll be sure to link that in the description. There won't be a whole lot of overlay between his work and mine in that sense, but if you want to follow this rabbit hole, so to say, in a little more detail, I'd strongly recommend that video. This will go in a kind of a different direction, but nonetheless, good information. So, without wasting time, let's jump into the article here. This will transition us into at least one more episode from this kind of Apergic John Jacob Astor realm, perhaps on its own, or I'll just make it part of the next Radium episode. It's just that seems the likely of the two choices, but we shall see. This is from Wheeling Register, Sunday, April 11th, 1897. So far, I can zoom in before it gets a little too hard to read for you guys. That looks about good. So, as I stated, to prove we live inside the Earth. Get my face off the screen. Most people are of opinion that they live upon the surface of the Earth. But, and again, it's a little hard to read here on the left side, so bear with me. But if the great expedition of the Koreshan Nautilus scientists soon to begin elaborate and only observations on the coast of Florida near the little village of Naples is fortunate enough to experience favorable weather during April and May and to correctly apply the Apergy theory of John Jacob Astor, the world will learn that this terrestrial globe is a vast, hollow ball. Upon the inner sides of this ball, the human race crawls like so many flies within a goblet, and the area remaining is occupied by different planets. Furthermore, the mighty job which we are in our benighted ignorance considered to be the sun is not that at all. Nobody ever saw the sun. As for the law of gravitation, and the improvements of the sphere's movement, perhaps, no, improvement, and other fundamental astronomical data, they all stress delusions based upon the misconception of the universe. A very large sum of money has been ascribed by the adherents of this. The system to cellular cosmogony and or for the purposes of this investigation, and when their final report is made to the numerous societies all over the industry, not sure, the mightiest intellectual persons in the history of the world. Again, I apologize. This is the only paper I could find that's publishing, so we're just going to have to bear with it. It is an interesting fact that this, so as a synopsis, because I can kind of fill in the blanks here just due to the book that we're going to be discussing later. Um, Essentially, Astor funded this group and collected all of these, what he called like minded people, um, in Naples, where he built this observatory. And, as part of their kind of communal grounds. But he was dumping a lot of money into this. He was convinced that the Earth was a hollow sphere and we occupied the inside of it like an egg of sorts. And they had designed a machine. I believe it'll get into that in a little bit, but I just wanted to catch you up. Basically, they're saying that all of the astronomical proofs we have, this is again the 1800s, are absolutely incorrect. And they'll get into some of the Copernican nonsense, at least as they see it. Again, you know how I read some of these articles. I don't, wholeheartedly commit my opinions or beliefs to any of these articles. I just read them for um, the purposes of providing you with this kind of information. And though there is really ample things that we should take away from writing like this, there's also, we have to practice discernment with any of these articles. And that goes unsaid. I've said it before, but I can see where people are going to go with this one, but that's okay. This is just kind of to keep that imagination and um, thought-provoking material going, and hopefully it does provide you some form of entertainment intellectually and stimulating as well. And so bear with me as we get through these last few paragraphs, and then there won't be any more issues with the text. Okay. It is an interesting fact that this something scientific movement contains so few women among its leaders. The Koreshan Arc Triumphant in Chicago, I'm not Society Arch, sorry, not sure what it says, presented at West 99th Street and 5th Avenue, where Miss V. H. Andrews Koreshanism, two large gatherings, welcomes, formulas. In Denver, Colorado, they're going over the areas where they have all these different Koreshan um, kind of capitals. And it listed those earlier in the article. So I am going to skip ahead so I don't have to stumble over so many words in conducting the mission. Yet Pennsylvania, they're talking about all of their different locations. Owing to the indefinable labors of Miss Nana McDonald, founded Camp Collins at Beaver Falls. Immense amounts of literature are being illustrated widely over the country, and the Koreshan are awaiting the report of their Great Florida Commission in order to lay the matter before Congress and begin a national geodetic survey to overthrow once and forever the Copernican system. Important little part there, obviously. An immense amount of harm is being done, it appears, by the work of the Lick Observatory. The astronomers and the scientists generally, for Koreshan Unity is distinctly a religious movement which attributes the evils of the modern world, its social upheavals and popular discontents, to the prevalent cosmog cosmo cosmical, cosmical misconception of the nature of the universe. What a word to trip over, huh? Man, I can't agree with this more. I think that is a big part of it. People to have no real understanding of themselves and how they fit into the system. As above, so below. Um, you're just the mirror image of everything. God in you and God in nature and God in everything, living and breathing, and taking away your connection with all of that, right? The narratives that we talk so uh, obviously about today, right? This is so many years in advance of those kind of things and where the Copernican system took us, especially when we talk about the 50s and 60s and 70s. I think this relates nicely again to the concepts of world war. Radium plays a part in this, of course. Space travel and all of these kind of things that are at this point coming to quite a prominent forefront in society and being questioned quite drastically. One only need to look to the India moon landing. Now, if you can't watch something like that and see the material provided and not think of that as pure theater, then I don't know what would help you. Um, think differently. I mean, looking through the 60s into the development of landing on the moon and all of these things. It's yeah. So again, like I said, use discernment, but one of my favorite paragraphs was right there. But the first question to present itself to the mind of the unprejudiced observer is how the Koreshan Scientific Commission of Florida can prove its main tenet. How does it arrive at its conclusion that we live in the interior of the earth and not upon its surface? What is the aunt outside of the Earth made of, and how is it possible to disprove the contentions of modern astronomy with its accurate predictions? In reply, there are two facts to start with. The Copernican theory is a hypothesis into which all the facts as yet known seem to fit. That is to say, astronomers proceed upon the theory that the planets revolve around the sun and that the law of gravitation is the cause. But every astronomer admits that this theory has never been absolutely proved. It is believed in, however, because all astronomical calculations are based upon it, and such calculations are always accurate. When we read in the almanac that there will be an eclipse next autumn, we believe that there will be an eclipse. When we read that in the summer the earth is further from the sun than it is in winter, we believe that too, because important meteorological observations are based upon such a belief, and those observations are invariably accurate. But beyond facts of this nature, we have no proof. The whole Copernican system rests upon upon what the lawyers call circumstantial evidence. So far, the astronomers and the Koreshans are agreed. The next fact staring us in the face is the recent failure of the law of gravitation to meet the demands made upon it as a basis for further exploration into cosmical phenomena. That is, recent observations by scientists seem to denote a condition in which gravity has no place. Now, we talk about this when we've talked about some of our interesting observations when it comes to comets, meteors, um, and other things along those lines. Electrical phenomena. If a boy throws a stone up into the air and it falls back to the earth, it should fall back again if thrown under the same conditions, and so on indefinitely. But if a boy threw a stone and it went up, up, up until it reached the sun, that would be proof positive that there never was such a thing as the law of gravitation. It is either variable or it does not exist. I'm sorry, it is either invariable or it does not exist. Now, something of this sort has been observed to happen with reference to the solar system. The movements of the celestial bodies are becoming more and more erratic from the standpoint of gravitation. In order to get over this difficulty, scientists have advanced the theory that there exists in the universe a force antithetical to gravitation. How this force operates has been vividly shown by John Jacob Astor in his recent book. Now, this book we'll pull up the whole book and we'll kind of do a chapter by chapter dissection of this book. That'll be a much longer video, but I plan on doing that here um, within either before or right after my next Radium episode, since they're going to have a lot of overlay. He gives this force the name Apogee. The Koreshan expedition claims to have discovered the nature of apergy and the ascertaining its relation to natural powers in physics. At this point, the average individual will object that these principles may apply in the region of pure science, but how is the ordinary man to prove to himself that he is living inside the earth and not upon the surface? This can be proved by a very simple experiment. It is given in the words of celebrated Koreshan Myra K. Cadwell. Start with the accepted fact that the plumb line is perpendicular. Select a still water surface of several miles, which we will agree conforms to the Earth's surface, and place firmly in the water a pole and adjust its perpendicularity with a plumb line. With a spirit level and square, make a level horizontal bar upon the top of this. Continue this line for a few miles, keeping it perfectly horizontal, and it will run into the water on either side, proving conclusively not the convexity of the cavity of the Earth's surface. These are very simple words, and the lady who utters them has for years studied astronomy at observations in this country and Europe. The Koreshan system employs a quaint metaphor in further elucidation of their system. The human race it considers as chicks, and the Earth is the great egg containing them. The shell is composed of various minerals and vegetable layers. The size of the Earth is the same as described by the Copernican system, but the planets are comparatively small globes, and the moon is a mere mirror of the Earth. Now, this has become also a popular uh, subject matter and kind of the alternative concepts of the moon, at least when it comes to new conceptions of the moon. I'd say in the last few years, this idea that the moon is a mirror has really grown legs and become quite an interesting field worth exploring. Again, the planets are comparatively small globes, and the moon is a mere mirror of the Earth. The sun is in the exact center of the hollow egg we call the Earth. This sun rests in the middle of a sea of a boron. Outside that sea is another sea of hydrogen, and then comes the sea of atmosphere, which we breathe. The sun is not visible, but its image is reflected from the center of the hollow globe to the outer atmospheric sea. Wow, I love that. That image is what we behold daily. The great event, however, which is to complete the scientific mission of Koreshan Unity, now draws to a climax. And in extreme southern part of Florida, there at Naples, an elaborate series of buildings has been constructed and immense lenses placed in position for the purpose of demonstrating the premise of the Koreshan system, which is that the line of vision is not straight but curved. Wouldn't that be crazy? I can't say I agree with this model. However, wouldn't it be super interesting that it's just a pure inversion? It's not only, it's not really that I see that so often, the pure inversion, the just straight 100% flipping. We're not dealing with curvature the other way. We're dealing with curvature. Quite an interesting thought. In fact, the whole science of optics must be revolutionized, and the instrument employed in the task is now in Naples, Florida. It is called a rectilineator, and by its use, the line of vision will be, for the first time, accurately measured. This work will be finished, it is hoped, within 6 months. The temporary buildings in Florida form quite a village of little observatories, and Koreshans of eminence, including Dr. A. W. K. Andrews, Professor Ulysses G. Morrow, and Dr. Annie J. Ordway, are either supervising or paying visits of inspection to the place. The staff of assistants number 40 every day. The R of the horizon is measured. So the staff of assistants number 40 every day. The Not sure of the horizon is measured. The arc, sorry, the arc. As the work progresses, reports are made to the societies throughout the country. The great convention of the Koreshan body will meet upon the conclusion of the work to hypothesized the founder of the movement, Koresh, who 26 years ago began to preach his doctrines and has since been translated to the side sidereal no side no sidereal system in the sea. It's not sidereal. That's an important thing to say. Has been translated to the system in the Sea of Aberon. His followers are estimated at 20,000, and the number is constantly growing. Thank you for being patient with me there and stumbling. You know how some of these copies of these old papers can be quite horrible and wretched, and as I dug quite deeply to find one with a better contrast ratio, I was unable to do so. So yeah, lots of really interesting information there, and again, the key really interesting to me it is. You know, again, whether or not this is a system you can put your faith in, that's not at all why I read these articles. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything, but just provide some very interesting change of ideas. Kind of again, why the 1800s were such a breeding ground for wonderful conversation and thinking outside the box, and kind of how those systems have fallen by the wayside. To finish up this video, we're going to read a quick little snippet about the book that we'll be diving into, John Jacob Astor's book. And in the next video, we'll talk more about who John Jacob Astor was, his infinity with not only radium but also Apogee, what he thought the future held for radium. And believe you me, it involved space travel, but space not as we think of it as today, but space in the term that they're describing it here. This kind of um, um, inner atmospheric transportation, and that the planets are inside this closed system. Now, something I find very interesting. You know, whether you believe they're beyond the wall, the dome, the firmament, or trillions of light years away, is irrelevant. And again, I just want this to bring people together and have really interesting conversations, and perhaps it'll spark some kind of idea or correlation. And I really look forward to the comments on this one. I'm sure they're going to be interesting. So, like I said, we're going to finish with a quick little snippet, very small, right here in the middle. And this is from 1894. It's literally one of the earliest mentions of Apogee in a newspaper, but I like it because it ties in with not only the article previously, John Jacob Astor, but his book that we're going to talk about a little bit more in a coming episode. John J. Astor writes a romance, travels of the future to Jupiter and Saturn with the help of Apogee. Should I zoom in? I'm going to zoom in more so you guys can see this. Mr. John Jacob Astor has written a romance, which is to be published immediately by D. Appleton and Co. Now, what's funny is we'll show how the terminology and literature that was not only prescribed to the Koreshan movement, but also to his scientific and intellectual publishings were quite infuriating to the man. And he was never taken seriously. He was just a rich kid. And you can see by A Romance of the Future, although the book was taken as, sci-fi, so to say, fiction, um, he certainly did not feel that way. He created a story around his own beliefs. The time is the year 2000 AD, and the story describes a journey by a novel means to the planet Jupiter, where the conditions of the Carnivorous Age are found to exist, and also to Saturn, where the travelers are imagined to meet with the spirits of the departed. Now, the Jupiter in the Carboniferous Age, I think that's really interesting. We're going to show that he talks about giant insects, giant fauna, giant reptiles. Okay, just like what we've said, I think this realm was like, and that they have pointed out that it does seem that there are still planets, Jupiter being one of them, that have this quote vapor canopy that I think was responsible in contributing to high CO2 and high atmospheric density, which led to the large, large growth, these giants of the past. The romance is said to contain many new and striking developments of the possibilities of science in the future, and the book is described as extremely interesting, both as a work of imagination and an example of the ingenious and original application of science. That was quite complimentary. He took a lot of shit for this in the early 1900s. This is Mr. Astor's first important venture in literature. He was laughed at and scoffed at, and eventually, I hope that we can start to talk about the Titanic and his role in society and what may have contributed. Again, there's a lot of uh, there's a lot of interesting conspiracies surrounding the Titanic and the destruction of this group of men and the guys who hopped off at the dock right before the boat left. And Astor was ruffling a lot of feathers. And yeah, but hopefully that gets you interested, and we can look into that more in the future. We certainly will be talking about it, hopefully in the next episode, if not in the next Radium episode. This is scientific literature. This is Mr. Astor's first important venture in literature, although when he was at St. Paul's School at Concord, he contributed several articles of merit to the school paper. Horae Scholastia, among them one entitled AD 2000 and another called Dreamland and Shadowland. When a student at Harvard, he devoted himself in a large part of scientific courses into political economy, and his interest was shown by the fact that he had the honor of appearing on the rank list every year. Since graduation, he has given much time to the scientific literature and study. He has been engaged upon a journey in other worlds for 2 years. One special object has been, as the preface says, to increase popular interest in science. In his book, he develops the idea of a new force called Apogee, the counterpart of gravitation, its application representing, of course, an advance on the flying machine. This is again where the radium becomes really important, because Apogee and radium pop in on the scene at the same time in the historical context. Although I do believe both were well known in older times. An advanced flying machine, which the most progressive minds believe to be near at hand. Yes, they. So again, what was this? I apologize. 1894. In 3 years, we have the first article of radium ever being published, and it's in my first episode of my radium series called "The Secrets to Aerial Flight." For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome, and I strongly recommend checking out the radium series. It's going to correlate quite nicely with this, and you can see this flying machine with a far more in-depth explanation. its application Its application, representing, of course, an advance on the flying machine, which the most progressive minds believe to be near at hand. Yes, sorry about that. Many adventures and strange incidences are described, and these have furnished admirable subjects for the illustrator Dan Beard. So I love that little drop there, right? Many adventures and strange incidents. Excuse me. And so, yeah, many adventures, strange incidents are described, and they have furnished admirable subject for the illustrator. And when we dive into the book, you're going to kind of see some of these theories come to life. Some of these ideas, these interesting, quote, admirable subjects for illustration. Now I'm going to show just a few little forms of their literature. How they look. The firmament over the earth, 12 foundations of rocks and metals. Here you have the kind of strata. Shell of the earth, solid continents, 20 billion cubic miles. The different layers of atmosphere, which is very, very interesting. It does correlate quite nicely to the different levels of atmosphere. But yeah, come to whatever conclusions you want, and take of it what you will. And that's, again, where we go with this in later episodes will be quite interesting. And I love that I found this article, and I hope you enjoyed me presenting it to you and sharing some of my ideas. And it'll make even more sense as we go along. So, as always, thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me. Looking forward to the comments on this one. And yeah, make sure to check out the videos I link in the description if you want more information. Have a great day, guys. Bye.